Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not to Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Batwoman. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, I like that beginning part because, for one, it's Kate and Alice playing Mortal Kombat, which I think is interesting because the previous episode of Legends of Tomorrow had Birad and Zari playing Mortal Kombat, which obviously I just like that being like a little wink and nudge, like they're playing Mortal Kombat, but also just interesting because it's like, two different sets of siblings from two different shows playing Mortal Kombat. I just thought that was kind of neat, but it's actually kind of sad too because like for Alice, it's like, this happy moment where she's with Kate and they're having fun and everything, but obviously like the power starts shorting and she's like, kind of started realizing it's not real. Because at first I was like, okay, so whose fantasy is this? Is this Kate or Alice's? And it turns out to be Alice's because it's kind of like her. She was like fantasizing, kind of having a happy place during one of her quote unquote therapy sessions. So it's like that was kind of a pretty rough situation for and it's kind of sad to see that. At the same time, there's everything, eventually we kind of get into the crux of this episode because at the beginning, there's the whole thing with Kate stopping a bad guy, attacking him. He falls and gets hurt. She's worked, like in that moment, she thinks of Cartwright. Like she pretty much has PTSD from that. And she's like scared. She's like, please don't be dead. Please don't be dead. And obviously now it becomes very suffocating to be in a suit. So she goes a week without being in a suit. Obviously, stuff is going down. A previous villain known as the Detonator has returned to Gotham. Basically, he forces people who are in hero positions, kind of like doctors or cops or whoever, people who are good people, and forces them to put themselves in basically a trolley position, but rather than a trolley position being some other person, you're the other person in the trolley position of like, are you willing to sacrifice your life to save the countless other people on the other side of the tracks? So are you willing to let the train hit yourself or these other people? Only reason why I was about to go on a tangent, I won't. But nevertheless, the fact of the matter is, and that cop at the beginning, he made the choice. And the sad thing is, he gets blasted for it too because it's like, he didn't even let the timer reach the single digits. It's like, ooh, that's rough because the entire world's gonna look at you as like, you didn't even wait. That means like there was still plenty of time and you didn't do anything. You put your life above saving other people because there was like dozens of people at least a dozen people or something that died in that first explosion. And that's, kind of rough. And Kate is still out of commission as Batwoman. The city's without its Batwoman. Technically, because Mary, at her clinic, she sees another Batwoman brought in. She's like, another one. So that means in this week time, plenty of people have taken time to become Batwoman. In particular, there's a lady she's talking to in this episode. It's like, basically, the city's got PTSD because Batwoman being gone for any amount of time. It's like, well, what if she ends up leaving like Batman? He disappeared for 3 years and before we got Batwoman. What if it happens again? So, like, she's like, I want to, stand up, and fill in that gap kind of. And if I'm running around kicking, then most likely people will kind of back down because they'll still think Batwoman is active. Because a lot of criminals are going like, hey, Batwoman ain't been seen in a while. Let's do our thing. Especially the Detonator. It's like now of all times. Because it is really interesting timing because at the same time, like Sophie and Julie are looking into the guy that was hired to kill, what's his face, the dude that was framed for killing killing Lucius. But it turns out the bank where his money, all that stuff was set up and the payments were made to, ended up being the place that the Detonator blew up. So it's like, okay. But the fact of the matter is the Detonator has no association with Lucius Fox's murder. Like the dude hadn't even gone to jail for Lucius's murder yet. So it's like, so it seemed like there was no connection at the time. But I thought it was really interesting when we do find out because later on, the next place it ends up blowing up, it ends up being because Kate, not even willing to like get in the bat suits, decides she's going to interrogate one of the people because like basically this is a case that Bruce was never able to solve, but that's because Kate's like the reason why he wouldn't know that's because he didn't have military experience. Basically there's a 214 on like the bombs and stuff like that, and it turns out that that's from like basically disciplinary stuff, and obviously Kate, having gotten in trouble and stuff like that, would know. And I even love the fact is that Luke was like, it's a kind of ironic that you kind of being you getting in trouble is actually what's going to basically end up being what saved because basically it's about getting kicked out or whatever. I think is what that number is about. So it's like you getting kicked out and stuff like that actually kind of is potentially going to end up saving the city. So he's like, I recognize the irony in that. But the fact of the matter is, like I said, Kate wanted to handle it herself. She goes there as like, oh, a real estate person, but then she kind of shifts into Batwoman mode without even really thinking about it, because she like grabs onto the dude and it's like basically talk or I hurt you type of thing. But basically, it turns out his dad was the detonator. Basically, it's like, yeah, no one knows what it's like to basically kill someone, you know, in the line of duty. And so he was like, for people, he wanted to basically force people to understand, like, oh, like when, you know, when all the action's going down, when the heat, when the pressure's on, like, it's not that easy of a choice, whether it's like, you know, to take someone else's life or something. So he kind of wanted to put other people in that position. He was the original detonator, but he died 7 years ago, hence why the detonator hasn't been active in the past 7 years. Then he also cleared his son because apparently he had an alibi, so he wasn't a detonator. But it turns out the next person on the detonator's list was the lawyer for the guy that was framed for Lucius's murder. And you know that guy's panicking and he calls Jacob, and Jacob's like, no, give us time to clear the area and then we'll kind of take care of you and stuff like that. Because even at one point he's like, I'm not a hero, I'm not, you know, I can't do this. Jacob's like, you can do it, you will be a hero today, kind of, you know, forcing. It's sad because under those circumstances you kind of get forced to be a hero. Like, once again, it's a sad situation. Like, under that circumstance itself, I mean, I think humans naturally kind of have it's probably a little nihilistic of me and very pessimistic of me to look, but I think humans have a very like self-preservation instinct in them. I think it actually takes a lot of fortitude to break that like survive like that self-preservation within a person. I think it takes a lot to actually got a lot of strength of will to kind of push past that. But the area that's actually being hit, Mary's clinic is in that area, and the fact is no one knows about it because it's underground and no one, you know, so when it's getting cleared out, Mary stays behind along with the fake Batwoman, which I should also bring it up. I think that's just interesting storyline too, because I don't think that's really I mean, obviously we've seen people pick up like the Green Arrow mantle. I mean, that was a little bit different because that was Oliver's sister. It was a different situation, but it just reminds me of the PS4 Spider-Man, because there's actually a side mission in the game where you find a fake Spider-Man's actually going around doing good stuff, you know? So it just kind of reminds me of that. But Mary didn't want to leave because some of her patients couldn't be moved, so she tries to like put like mattresses on them to kind of save them from like any like, you know, any shock waves from the explosion. Kate's down there too. You know, luckily everyone walked away okay from the explosion, but seeing that woman in a Batwoman suit, and it kind of triggered Kate again, and Mary kind of ends up telling her, I know you're Batwoman. She's like, wait, what? It's like, yeah, the fact is, as she starts listing off of this stuff, she's like, it should have been so obvious to me, because the person I look up to the most, like the person who's a hero to me, you know, I look up to you, of course you'd be Batwoman. And it's just like, so this city needs you more than I need you, you know? And she's like, but I'm not, it's complicated. She's like, it always is. And she's like, I'm not a hero. And she's like, I'm not asking you to be a hero. I'm just asking you to keep doing what you're doing. And I thought that was such a powerful moment, because it's just kind of like, Kate's been so much in her own head about like, oh, I'm not a hero, I don't deserve the mantle. It's kind of like a, no, push that on the side. Hero or not, you've been doing good and keep doing it. Now, what, you know, because I mean, truth be told, there's a whole vigilante thing of like that stigma of like, oh, because I mean, look at the Crows, they'll never look at you as a hero. But it's more so like how she's afraid of like, you know, the people in her circle, in particular Luke, would look at her, you know, because obviously Luke's dealing with everything with this whole situation, even at the point like punching a punching bag, and she's like, oh, that's changed in the past week, and she wants Luke to talk about it, but even he's like, are you going to tell me what's up with you? And even her, like when she didn't want to put on a bat suit, she was like, if I told you what was really going on, you wouldn't want me to have the bat suit on anyway either, you know? So when the time came, we ended up getting revealed who the other person, who the bad guy is, the real detonator this time around, and it ends up being well, I'm blanking on his name, but it's the dude, like, I thought it was so interesting. It's the actor who plays Godric and Charmed. Even I was like, it's just so interesting you be on both shows and you're playing like a recurring role in the show. This what kind of threw me for a loop. It should have been, because I was like, you must play some important role, because he just got used, it just seemed too specific. But it turns out, yeah, like he's actually the one behind everything. Lucius's murder. The fact of the matter is, all this, has all been a cover up. Him being the detonator, that's why the detonator ended up hitting spots that were, because the place that blew up, the second place that blew up that was close to like basically Mary's clinic was like underneath. That place is where the shooter lived, the assassin. So it's like it was all for cleaning up. And so now that dude ended up picking his next target, ended up being Jacob, which makes sense because Jacob's the only other person that has been looking deeply into this whole Lucius's murder, like the conspiracy behind it and stuff like that. So luckily, Kate ended up chasing him down, but it turns out the next bomb is under Wayne Enterprise because or the Wayne building, because he knows that Luke is there, so he wanted to get rid of another loose end, but Kate took him there, and it's like disarm the bomb, but he's like, I can't unless the bomb kind of goes, it can't be tampered with. It kind of has to go off on its own. Luke shows up there with a gun, and obviously he wants answers. So it turns out that the reason why this happened is because he got paid to go after. He went after. Lucius because he was after a journal that Lucius had. And part of me was like, what was that journal? I was like, do you think it had to have some information about Bruce? Because we ended up finding out, was it Tommy Elliott was the one behind it? It was like, we know he was obsessed with trying to prove that Batman and Bruce Wayne were the same person, stuff like that, So I was wondering if it had to deal with that. Like, was it notes? But we'll find out about it later on. But it's because everything Wayne tech wise, all the inventions and stuff like that, he had written down in there. So like if someone got that journal, he'd have access to everything that Wayne Tech would be able to build and know, like have the schematics to everything. But that's what he was after. But it wasn't supposed to go down the way that he was just trying to scare Lucius. But he threatened Luke, and that caused Lucius to attack him. And during the struggle, he ended up shooting him. And ever since then, he's been trying to clear things up, cover things up. And so he's been committing all of this for that purpose. Luke was about to put him down because it's like, what's the point of putting him in jail just for him to be caught up in a system where he could easily, potentially get away with it. But then Kate, still kind of having her PTSD moment, kind of like finally comes clean with him. It's like, I killed Cartwright. And it's like, the fact of the matter is this city's running low on heroes. And I don't want you to kind of basically lose yourself because of this, And so luckily, because it was also interesting too, because apparently, did Luke say it was his dad or Bruce? I think he said it was his dad that had prepared the building well event. So like basically there was like metal shielding around like the building to kind of keep the explosion contained so it wouldn't go to the surrounding area and say allocated to the building. So Luke had set that up ahead of time, and luckily they got Homedew out of there too before the whole thing exploded. So I also love like that little back and forth between Sophie and Julia when it's like, she's like, yeah, my associate. And she's like, and Sophie was looking at her and she has to mouth the words Batwoman. It's like, right, okay, I didn't know you had that associate. She's like, yeah, I only have like the one, because couldn't say that too much around Jacob because that would bring up too many questions, and we already know how he feels about Batwoman and everything. But luckily everything did work out well in the end like that. Sophie is now the head of some she's co-captain of a strike team, and lo and behold, Julie is there too. So I'm like, hey, we're going to be seeing more of you around too. So that's pretty dope. But also part of me is like, is it just going to be a friendship thing, or is there going to be something more between Julia and Sophie? It's like, that'd be weird on her part, where it's like, oh, both my exes got together. That'd be a whole lane of weird. I mean, that's why I'm kind of getting the feeling like they were setting it up, but it could just be like, we're a badass team. Let's, that could be the route they go down, or maybe it could just be more. We'll kind of have to wait and see. But what I thought was really interesting was the whole situation with Luke and Kate, because he's not judging Kate because for her, and I thought it was kind of interesting. He's like, why didn't you just tell me about the whole car fight situation? She was like, you kind of look at me as I'm infallible, like I can never do any wrong. And the fact of the matter is, like, if I told you the truth about what I did, I was afraid of the way you look at me, that you wouldn't look at me that way anymore. Like, you'd see that I wasn't infallible, that, and then he was like, no, I still see it though. And she's like, well, I don't get it. He's like, you think you're the only one that's ever, crossed that. You're not the only one that's ever crossed that line. I'm like, oh, Bruce has? And he's like, you ever wonder why the Joker hasn't reared his head in 5 years? I was like, whoa, I had to rewind. I was like, wait, what? I was like, holy shit. He's like, you and Bruce have stared into the abyss. It's like, how long are you going to let the abyss stare back at you? I was like, holy shit, no shit. Bruce in this continuity, at least on Earth 1, Earth Prime, killed the Joker. Holy shit. I mean, it's so interesting too, because like Titans had that whole in the end of season 1 when Trigon was in Dick's head, was kind of like about like, you know, making him think that Bruce went insane and killed all his villains, including the Joker. So that's just kind of interesting. So I mean, to our knowledge, it seems like at least on Earth 9 the Joker's still alive, which is interesting because that was kind of a spiral for Bruce, because remember Earth 99 Bruce went straight through killing a whole bunch of his villains, so it's like, and kept trophies and stuff. So at least I think this is a symbol of like, or at least that we're aware of, this is the only person Bruce has killed. Because, you know, for her, it's like, you know, she thought she broke the code, but it's like Bruce kind of broke his own code too. Which I'm curious to see how people are going to handle that, because I know some people don't like the way Batwoman is handled. Like, oh, almost like I said, it's, oh, this isn't my Batman. It's like, because it's a different continuity. It's like, they can do whatever they want to, but I guess they feel like it goes against. But I think that's a good aspect to know, like, oh, he killed one of his villains. That had to be a heavy-ass struggle, because I like that, because it also makes her realize, like, oh, shit, Bruce went through this too, so I'm not alone in the struggle. So I haven't lost myself to this. So, like, you know, Bruce was able to keep going, because she said 5 years, so there's probably at least 2 years before he disappeared. I'm sure killing the Joker didn't help it along either, but it seems like, you know, at least, you know, there was a lot weighing on his shoulders before he ended up leaving Gotham, obviously, and disappearing. But still, I just think that's such an interesting thing to know that, like, I mean, to be fair, it's like, we're talking about the Joker here, the most chaotic anarchist of his villains, his number one nemesis. It's like, it's kind of like a, you know, the not necessarily, you know, the other side of the coin to him. So it's like, to know that he killed that villain, it's like, geez, that's nuts. I mean, like I said, we don't know if he killed others, but I'm assuming just the way Luke said it, like, it makes it seem like that was his one. So, that, you know, that's always the thing of like, oh, Batman just beats his villains into submission, but they always manage to break out of Arkham. So it's like, you know, I mean, once again, there's no other no one else in the Bat family in this continuity, you know, that we're aware of. I mean, definitely seems like, once again, everything's set up to be like Kate's the first extended member of the Bat family. Like, there are no Robinsons, there's no Batgirl, you know. So what makes you wonder, because I'm about to say, if this was a Jason Todd situation, sure, which is an interesting conversation to actually have, because, you know, obviously Earth 9, you know, with Titans and everything, but, you know, I mean, I guess it was just like him killing a whole bunch of people. It was just like Bruce was like, I've had enough. I can't just keep going on this game with you, and ended up putting him down. Whatever the case may be, it's just, like I said, it's just kind of an interesting thing. Like I said, I feel like Batman fans might not be too happy about that. Like, especially if you're a hardcore comic book reading like Batman fan, that might piss you off. I don't know. I'm just assuming. I don't want to speak for all Batman fans whether or not that's going to hit like hard for them or not, because I feel like some people didn't like Crisis on Infinite Earths, like the way Kevin Conroy's Batman was portrayed. Like I said, I really enjoyed it, but I know that some people, it rubbed them the wrong way. But, you know, like I said, everyone's entitled to feel the way they want to. It's just an interesting thing. Regardless, I also love the whole situation with Mary coming. It's like, oh my god, you look so good. And then like Luke looks and sees the picture of Batwoman. He's like, oh, Mary, I know what she's not Batwoman. It's like, don't worry, she knows. He's like, I have no idea what you're talking about, Kate. And he starts saying a whole bunch of stuff. And Mary's like, you're literally just speaking gibberish. You're just saying words now. And it's just like, I love that. Even though Kate told you it was literally okay, she's like, you know what? You two handle this. I'm a go. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. So there's that whole situation, and I think, you know, Kate is back as, you know, Batwoman full stride now. It does beg the question. I think that's going to be an interesting plot point going forward, is the whole situation about the journal. It's interesting because obviously this all this talk about Tommy Elliott, we do see him in this episode too, because he's locked up in the same facility that Alice and Mouse are. Obviously, I love that little therapy session, and Mouse is opening up and stuff like that. I even love Allison, and he's like, what are you doing? He's like, opening. She's like, why are you opening up? He's like, the fact of the matter is, for him, he enjoys his place because it's a safe space. They're together. They get room and shelter, food and shelter. The fact of the matter is, your family can't hurt us anymore. Plus, the lady we're running from, she can't get to us either. But obviously, for Alice, it's like, it's not enough for her. She wants a little bit more. And Elliot, so it's, I guess maybe just because of all the sessions and stuff like that, he's a little, it is nice to see that at least some of like, because What's Her Face is there too, like a villain that Kate's faced over the course of the season. She's also there too. It's like, yeah, this lady thinks she's a cat, that lady thinks she's a bird, and I got her name because they literally said it, but I was like, that's cool. But he's crazy. He's like, oh, my best friend Bruce, if he finds out, he's gonna have your job. I'm like, oh, you were all about tearing Bruce down before, but now I guess because of therapy sessions and stuff, now you are. Maybe it's always been an underlining. Well, because there was always a kinship between him and Bruce. He just felt like he never got his dues because it's like, oh, me and Bruce were kind of the same. But it was always a rivalry that, I guess was built upon envy and love. So I guess it just, all that enviness got turned into love and obsession to a certain extent, like because of this therapy sessions and stuff. But then you have Alice getting herself stabbed by him by bringing up Bruce, calling him like calling Tommy Elliott like a wannabe Bruce Wayne or something like that. And then she took the knife. I'm like, what's she going to do with that? But she also has stitches. I'm like, what's she pulling that out for? And then later on, Mouse ends up killing the doctor, head doctor did. It's like, rather than breaking out, they're like, nah, you have his face and everything now. So like, why don't we just kind of, eventually the city out there is going to forget about us. So when that's all said and done, we'll be able to kind of, strike back and make them never forget us again. But till now, we'll kind of take the run of the place. I'll be queen, you'll be king. So in a sense, you can almost look at it as like the inmates have taken over the asylum to a certain extent. You can look at it like that, and I think that's kind of an interesting thing. They're just going to be like super like just enjoying their thing. It's going to be interesting too because Mouse is just going to be secretly running the place. I'm curious to see what ends up happening. Like obviously, like Kate also like doing what she did to Alice was a byproduct of just like her not being able to live with the whole Cartwright situation. So I'm wondering, is she going to regret what she did? Is she actually going to try and come and visit Alice? I'm curious, is Jacob going to do that either? Obviously, also another thing too is like Jacob brought up the fact is that they are kind of building like the Crows back up because like it wasn't just Homedew. There was a few other corrupt people who kind of helped kept things hidden. So like to avoid a life sentence, Homedew was turned on the others as well, or rather it was a life sentence or a death penalty, whatever the case may be. So a lot of interesting things. I'm curious to see ultimately where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.